Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a serial entrepreneur with 17 startups under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We did that in 2016, pre-transformer models, but it was one of the first generative AI companies. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but our opportunities are not. Today, GSD is in 73 countries around the world, and we have 176 companies inside of our portfolio. So with that, I'd like to introduce Arsham. Arsham is, and I don't want to say his name wrong, Ghahramani, is a PhD. He's a co-founder of Ribbon.ai. He's got extensive experience working for companies like Ezra. And today we're going to talk about biomedical engineering and how it can drive recruitment. So with that, I'd like to bring Arsham on board. Hey, Arsham, how are you today?
Good. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Gary.
So can you share your personal journey from biomedical engineering and how you get started to AI-driven recruitment? I mean, it sounds like it's on the other than the algorithms, it sounds like it's on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, I took a pretty different, unique route to here. I guess. So maybe I can kind of chat through it a bit. Like, I feel lucky that I was working on AI since like 2014. So it was pretty early days. Like, as you know, kind of everyone is like obsessed with AI now. But in 2014, it was a pretty ugly space. Nobody cared about it. It was called machine learning, not AI, all that kind of stuff. And we were one of the first labs in 2014 to apply AI to like a specific kind of biological data. So like super in the weeds. I was interested in that space just because always liked working on hard problems, was interested in AI because it seemed like an area that was going somewhere and wanted to apply it to like health tech. Kind of did that whole stint, left academia because I thought I just wanted to get real products into real people's hands. Like I enjoyed like the idea of working on health, the idea of working on like academic problems, but I felt like wasn't really like making the impact that I wanted to with real products. So then went on to work at Amazon, where I led one of the AI like recommendation teams there. So if you go on like Amazon.com and you see product recommendations on the front page, that was kind of our team. And then also worked at a company called Ezra that you mentioned earlier. So there I was one of the early employees. I was the head of AI. And it was there that I met, it was when I was there that I met my co-founder, Dave. He was the head of people and talent there. I was the head of AI. And we were hiring essentially a bunch of people together. And that was like where the idea for Ribbon came from. We had this shared struggle of hiring. There were some months and quarters where we had to hire just like an unreasonable number of people at unreasonable pace too. So we spent a lot of time thinking about like, what is good hiring? What is bad hiring? How do we hire the very best people in a really fast like time? And as you know, kind of that's like a really tricky problem. And so we took a lot of those ideas and turned that into Ribbon. And I'll just talk a bit maybe about kind of like what we are today. So the core of Ribbon is a voice AI interviewer that interviews people for jobs. And we're as of this week, we're working with 460 companies on that. These range from like early stage teams where it's just a couple of founders hiring out their initial team, all the way to like some of the largest enterprises on earth who have really large recruitment teams but want to recruit even faster and at scale. And our AI interviewer essentially interviews candidates for them. It's all voice-based. So think like Alexa or Siri, but much better, can show emotion, can ask like follow-up questions, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that was kind of how we got to here. It is a bit of a roundabout journey, but it is what it is.
No, I mean, I've been involved in AI myself for 29 years when it was expert systems. And I came at it from a little bit different perspective. I was a psychologist. And I remember being in graduate school. I So they asked me if I would go down and work on the mainframe computer. I remember sitting in the lab and saying, when will the capacity of this system equal the capacity of the human brain? I remember distinctly the day. And coming out of graduate school, I wanted to go to medical school. And I thought, I don't want to be a psychiatrist. This is not so interesting. Psychology, it depends on what kind of psychology you're doing. But the kind I was doing, where I did my internship in people that had severe behavioral disorders that were criminalistic, was not interesting. I got to tell you, it's nice watching the movies, at Halloween time, but it's not so interesting when you're doing it. And I said to myself, so I got involved with Apple, right? So I sold some of the first Apple computers, literally the Apple One, Apple II time frame early on. And I started saying, this is a whole lot more fun. And you look at it, today, in 2016, I was on stage in San Francisco and I was talking about AI, and people said this is going to happen for 25 years. And we would do ladder networks, variational autoencoders, knowledge graphs, those kind of things, and applying it to the infobesity challenge that we have in front of us. And people said it wasn't going to happen. Well, I said, it is going to happen. It's happening now. And if you don't buy into it, 3 years later, I raised $7 million in 3 months. And 3 years later, OpenAI was founded in December. And people said, oh, this is going to be real. In fact, I remember I wrote one of the first articles about it. And it is, right? Everything changed because of the problem. I mean, we look at Arsham, we are surrounded by data. In Arsham's world, you got about 300,000 items. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000 websites. You have more information in your personal cloud, the entire web. The problem is Arsham's trajectory is following the same trajectory of the web, but that'll mean doubling every year. In 5 years with IoT, you're going to have 10 million items. And now, this is an interesting thing, right? You're a really smart guy, but I have the same problem. The head of the quantum lab at Harvard says she has the same problem. It's infobesity. How many times in the last 3 weeks has somebody said, hey, Arsham, I sent you a message, or did you get it? Where'd you send it? I sent it to your email. Which one? Right? And you're smiling. You know the problem, right? I don't remember. Let me check. I can't find it. Will you send it again? This problem is killing us. And so these tools like you're developing that had empathy and compassion that'll help us solve those problems are going to be critically important for our future, right? And so whether it's in recruitment and the empathy and compassion in that model, right, and sentiment analysis and all those things to understand how somebody's feeling coming in so you can deal with them in the way that's most suitable for them, and it's fascinating, but it's going to be done in everything, right? Those same tools are going to be used, the same kind of analysis that companies like Amazon should be doing today, right? They should know how you feel, not what you think.
Right. No, I think you're right. Like the way I always think about it is like think of a recruiter's day, like with and without AI. Right now, kind of without AI, it's like a regular recruitment team. A recruiter, they wake up, they might have a schedule all day of interviews, all back to back. So they have no time to research any of the candidates. They have to take notes in the interview as well, which is distracting from the interview. After the interview, they need time to write up some of the notes, but they have to go straight into the next interview. And then at the end of the day, they have all these notes, all these candidates, and they're not even sure like which are the ones that kind of stand out, right? And this is just in one area of recruitment, but they feel really bombarded. And all those interviews that they're doing all day, they're essentially asking the same questions over and over, right? And so the way that like we kind of help those kind of teams is by like simplifying their job, by like allowing them to focus on the aspects of their job that they like really actually want to. And also we help them kind of tease out who are the top candidates out of all these. So if you've done like, let's say 40 conversations this week, we help you identify like which are the parts of those conversations that really mattered, which are the candidates that really stood out, how do they rank, how do they match the requirements, all that kind of stuff. And so like the end goal of what we're doing is to make their job honestly a lot more enjoyable than what it is today. Like if you speak to a lot of recruitment teams now, they seem stressed, they feel overworked, they spend a lot of time on like repetitive things that could be automated. So we want to take away like all the aspects of their role that they hate and only leave the parts that they really, really enjoy, right? Which is like actually connecting with other people who are very qualified and then placing them into a role.
Well, I mean, but the thing is what you just described, and I have a doctor from Yale inside of GSD and um, several high level medical folks, the same problem that doctors have, right? You go into an office, you got 15 minutes or 10 minutes to talk to a patient. You can't really, you're going from one to another to another. It's hard to even imagine having a tool like yours that's there that can help you to be able to understand. And I'm sure you thought about that. Um, because that's the key. That's the holy grail, right? The Germans have a phrase, Gestalt, the sum of the parts equal the whole. We got to tie this stuff together. And then the other thing, I don't know about you, Arsham, but some of the things. So I also own a development company. We've been building multi-agent, multimodal large language models where we've got multiple models working as a team. And I found that, one of them, before when we first tried it, Claude was about 1,000 times faster than ChatGPT and mathematical capability. And they give each other responsibilities, by the way. So is the think tank. And these tools are going to profoundly impact humanity, right? And give us superpowers. For instance, my dog had stage 4 cancer, and I put it on the dog. And so I put it on the problem, put all our information in. It came back with at a molecular level. I needed to extract the tumor off her kidney, send it down to a lab, and identify the lab that I could build a cancer vaccine, and that they would use that tumor to be sure that it was hyper personalized for her. And they built it and put her in full remission of stage 4 cancer. Right now, I'm not a scientist, right? That kind of scientist. But those profound capabilities and things that you're building can be used in all kinds of different ways. And here's the thing, the tools that you're just describing can be used for everything, right? My friend Sam Liang built Otter. So in fact, we all built, so Robinhood, Otter, Musically, we're all built in California at its facility, right? We're all together. And it was quite interesting because this is the future, right? What do you think about modular models, like using what you have as an engine to be able to take it and put it into something else, like we just talked about medicine, because the same problem exists for doctors, right? And then tying it back in so it can analyze it and already start scheduling your appointments and things.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things are like modular in that way that you're describing, and also have uses like outside of where they originally were developed for. Like we're seeing that one example just as a result of like the voice interviewer that we've created. And the kinds of companies that we sell into, for context, are like high volume hirers. So think like warehouses, factories, large enterprises that hire a lot of people. Like those are kind of the majority of our customers. They do a ton of interviews with us. And so like as a result of that, we probably have the largest interview data set anywhere in the world. And in my area of voice AI, if you have the most data, you can basically deliver the best experience, right? Because you've seen the most interviews, you've seen the most edge cases, you end up with the best experience on the market. So as a result of that, we had a few companies outside of recruitment come to us and say, can we use your voice AI for like our own use case? Because we saw that you have the best. I tried your demo. There's something kind of different here. So one of the examples there was expert networks. We were actually approached by an expert network kind of almost a year ago now. And they essentially asked to use the same technology. They run their own kinds of interviews. And they're using our tech there. But you can kind of think of like anywhere where there's human conversation, that's an area where Ribbon could actually help, right? Because
yeah, I mean that's what I'm talking about, because that problem, you mean the data problem, I got a lot of things, so on one side I'm a researcher too, right? But it's fascinating because we're going to have to deal with those infobesity problem, and we're going to have to start solving it because we have too many unanswered questions. I don't know about you, but for me, the tools have given me superpowers. In fact, I spoke twice at the UN. I've been talking about this for a long time. And I think that these superpowers are going to, Sam Altman says the first company that's going to have $1 billion, that's one employee. I mean, but you have these powers in front of you. Nobody knows how many physical employees you have, right? You could have it would look like you have hundreds or thousands of workers, and you wouldn't. You'd have one person. But this is going to, and here's the other thing, Arch. How hard is it for somebody to compete? Think about a typical recruiting within a company. How hard is it for them to compete with you using these tools, right? What kind of money can you save them? What kind of return on investment? I mean, it's phenomenal, right? It changes the scale, plus it's more highly accurate.
Right. The scale piece, I think not everybody is like fully thought through as well. And I think there's like implications there because you take like we work with some individual recruiters, right? They used to work at a large company, they left, now they can use Ribbon. And like usually without Ribbon, they would be limited to maybe like 20 to 40 interviews a week if they're like interviewing all day, every day. Now in an hour, they could run 1,000 interviews. Like there's no limit, right?
And then how do you do the filtering on the side? So when does it come to the human touch? When do you start?
Right.
Where's that in the process?
Yes. After every interview, as a recruiter, you get access to a few things. You have the full video, you have the transcript, you have the audio of the call. That's the kind of raw data stuff, right? And then on top of that, we do a bunch of intelligence and analysis of the interview. So we will score the candidate for things like the language proficiency, for their like skills match, for their experience, for their motivation, things like that. And then as a company, you can also bring your own requirements too. So you could say, here are 10 things that we also score for every candidate. Here are the requirements and the way that we like determine that score. And if you bring all of that, we score in like your own kind of language as well. So one of the things that teams actually really like about Ribbon is that we don't force them to like learn the way that we score. We'll just adapt to the way that you score things too. So that's where the human touch comes in, is like it's not like we're removing the human out of this at all. We're just making them much more productive, because now one recruiter can like orchestrate 100 interviews a day. They can view them all, rank them, add their own comments, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can like highlight a part of the interview that really like, and then share that with someone else. So there's always like a human making the decision, and I think that'll be the case for like a very long time. I think anyone claiming otherwise is mistaken in my view, but we just make people more efficient, and that's where kind of Ribbon comes in.
Well, I mean, that's what has to happen, right? We get so many challenges on the planet Earth today. You know, we've got by 2050 the double the food supply. You can't increase the number of cattle because 26% of pollution is methane gas, right? So it's about how do we make everything more efficient, and using the tools like you've been developing help us. So whether it's interviewing, we talked about medicine. I mean, it's everything. You could actually put it on every conversation, kind of like Otter, couldn't you? It just like right now, like my friend Sam did. And you can analyze that conversation from a sales standpoint and figure out what you need to respond back with.
Right. That's right. I honestly, I think the best like mental model for Ribbon is we're the combine harvester for recruitment. Like we allow smaller teams to do things that I previously took 20, 30 people. And it's just leverage, right? It's like leverage of skills and recruitment in general.
No, it's fantastic. And how big is your company now? How many employees do you have?
Right now, we're only 6 people, actually. Yeah, so we're staying pretty lean for now.
That's great. So, can you share a remarkable success story from a company that's actually adopted Ribbon?
Yeah, sure. One of the companies I'd love to mention is called, it's actually a non-profit. They're called Propel Impact. And they're based here in Canada. They're a really interesting like team. We've worked with them for a few months now. They help organizations that are driving social change. And the way they do that is they will place young, really bright people into those organizations for around like a 3 or 4 month internship. They usually get like tons of applicants. They're not like flush with cash as an organization necessarily. And recruitment is not their number one focus, right? And so what's interesting with them is that like they've traditionally always found recruitment as a massive pain point, right? And interviewing enough of these young people to get into these placements, it was really hard for them, and so they would usually cap out. And I think in the last few years, they interviewed maybe 200 to 300 people each time. And then this year was the first year they started using Ribbon. And in the first year, they were able to 3x the number of people that they interviewed with exactly the number of interviewers as they had before. And so as a result of that, they were able to place more people into these organizations that drive sustainable change. They were able to place better people as well, because they knew that they'd screened like everyone within their pipeline. And so that's like an example of how like companies are now just able to do a lot more with exactly the same number of people on the team.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? That's the future. And what happens if people don't adopt it? What companies don't use these tools like Ribbon in the future? What's going to happen to them?
I think it'll be like exactly like other industries now where people don't adopt technology, right? Like I think there will always be some industries or companies that like hang back a bit. I think there'll even be like kind of like an organic movement, right? Like you have it's the same as food, right? Like there's
I think they're going to hang back, Arsham, but there's, dinosaurs hung back too. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
I think in some
you're being
industries,
very kind. I don't think that's what I think. For me, it's going to be if they don't. If you understand how this market's moving,
yeah,
it's going to the separation between companies that are successful and not successful. There's going to be such a wide gap very, very, very quickly, because once you harness the power of these tools, not just for recruiting, for everything else in the organization, you can hyper optimize the company to do all kinds of things in a hyper intelligent, empathetic and compassionate way. And I say that, I'm a humanistic psychologist, and our models that we built are from that, right? It's important to bring humanity into it. It can't just be cold. I mean, the recruiting process, some of the best people are people that can dive into the situation, understand who you are, right? And where there's a fit. It's fantastic. Have you ever thought about cutting a recruiting agency? I mean, this could be actually a recruiting agency like a monster, right? You put it on the front end of it. I'm sure you've been thinking about it, but that's another thing, right? And you find these highly qualified people, and you work out a deal with LinkedIn or somebody like that, and all of a sudden you've got a hyper recruiter that can do all kinds of things for you.
Yeah, we've actually been approached by some of the big players in that space as well, and they're interested. So far, we've decided kind of not to work with any of them yet. We have our own kind of aspects to that in the works too. I think one thing that is clear is we're going to see a lot of new recruitment agencies, I think, crop up who are very like AI native. So we see this pattern over and over again of like a one-person recruitment agency who's now able to do the work of like an entire 100-person org, right? Like I think that's the trend that we're seeing. So I think AI tools like Ribbon and other ones are actually going to create a lot of new entrepreneurs as a result of that, because people will just feel empowered to start their own thing, and they'll feel like they have everything. They can basically manage like an army of agents who will do the work of like employees previously. And so we'll see like a bunch of these like individual entrepreneurs go out and have a go.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's interesting. About a year and a half ago, I was on stage in California talking about agents, right? We had at Eva, I started Your Virtual Assistant. That company was a company that I sold. And, that is the future. So we're coming closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you, Arsham?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is to email me, arsham@ribbon.ai. Yeah, in terms of closing thoughts, like if there are any kind of teams out there who are struggling with hiring right now, or they just want to hire better people more efficiently, would love to have a chat with them just to understand kind of their hiring needs and see if Ribbon can help them out.
That's great. Well, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. This is Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. We'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, Arsham.
Thanks so much.